a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, hitting cut again, man.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victors!
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Hey, welcome back. Aho, here at K, all of our friends and relatives in all four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. We discuss local and national Native news and events here on Native Roots Radio. My name is Haley Cherry, or I guess my Ho-Chunk name is Chashape Wangawe Neek, meaning Little Eagle Princess in Ho-Chunk Nation. And we have a very special guest host in with us today. Host Robert Pilot is out in Washington, D.C., so he's missing out on all of the fun, but we got a couple Ho-Chunk girls here in the station, in the studio here. So I want to go ahead and introduce Arvina Martin. Arvina is the executive director of Emerge Wisconsin. Arvina, hi. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And we always love having you on the air with us.
Yes. Thank you for having me, Haley. And thank you in absentia to Robert, for having me, inviting me to guest host in his absence. I know he's out in DC doing some good work for the people right now. So I'm happy to, to hold it down here for him so he can go out and take care of business.
Absolutely. And I just want to remind everyone, too, that this portion of the show is supported by JS Bean Factory off Randolph Avenue here in St. Paul, Minnesota. Native owned, bringing us the best coffee that keeps us awake. Robert loves the dark roast. I'm not much of a dark roast girl. I'll have to admit, I do like a lot of creamer in my coffee, but I don't know. What about you, Arvina?
Yeah, I actually prefer the cold brew. You know, it's a little less bitter, but still has that, that oomph, all that caffeine punch that I need when I'm working into the night trying to get things done.
Exactly. Well, what have you been up to? I know we just got through Halloween, and we've got Day of the Dead still going on here with the next couple of days here for our relatives in Mexico. And then also today is the first day. It is Native American Heritage Month here starting November 1st.
Happy Native American Heritage Month to you, Haley.
You as well. And we're both Ho-Chunk, which is really cool.
Yes, I like to joke and call it Wongshik Wednesday, even though Wongshik includes people who are not Ho-Chunk. It doesn't alliterate the same way.
Right.
Ho-Chunk Wednesday.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have any big plans for events or anything during Native American Heritage Month, Haley?
Oh, my goodness. I have not checked the calendars yet, but we're lucky here in Minnesota. I know you're over in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
We have a really great Native community here, especially urban in the Twin Cities. And there's always a bunch of events going on. So I'm sure someone will put together a big old calendar for all of us. And I'm sure, we'll be going to a lot of events.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same here. It's a matter of actually looking at my calendar and figuring out what it is I can make work in my schedule. There's a lot of stuff coming up that I have for work personally. So, I want to be able to check out things in more places in Wisconsin other than just Madison, which is where I live. Hopefully I can check out some stuff in Milwaukee, maybe Baraboo, the Dells, some other places as well. Cause I know, we've got lots of Native communities here in Wisconsin, not just our 11 federally recognized tribes, but we have lots of local tribal communities in our more urban areas and on our campuses with our Native students. And I know that there's some stuff happening here in Madison where, at our local Ho-Chunk Nation branch office, including some chances to learn how to do some Ho-Chunk arts and crafts, whether it's doing beadwork. I learned how to do pake making, which is very difficult but pretty cool. And I don't know. I was thinking about maybe trying to pick up some basket making skills. I know that my family did that. You know, my grandma and her family used to sell baskets back in the day in order to make money. I don't know about your family, but those were, yeah.
Well, I know there was someone that we've had on this show too. I'm totally blanking on her name. I don't want to say Trisha Zunker, but it might have been. I don't know. Does she make baskets? You know, Trisha?
Yeah, I don't know that she makes baskets. She might, but I know she's got an extensive collection of baskets.
Maybe that was it.
Yeah. I haven't seen her collection, but I've seen pictures. Actually, I think there were pictures of it when she was featured in Vogue a couple of years, you know, when she was running for Congress. And I saw there were pictures of her sitting in front of her collection, and I thought, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure if anyone in our family, mine and Robert's family, did baskets, but my Gaga and my great Gaga, Helen McKee, they're pretty known for their fry bread, I'll have to say.
Oh yeah, I can tell a story about during the pandemic. I am not known for my fry bread, but but I am known to eat it, and I tried to make some with a friend of mine during the pandemic. You know, we were both safe, and it was nice outside, so I was like, I'm going to make some fry bread, and my dough never rose, and found out later that the yeast that I had died. So so I was very adamant that it was not my fault.
Yep.
But regardless, still get teased to this day for my lack of fry bread skills. It wasn't my fault. The little yeast guys, they just weren't doing their job.
I didn't know. So is that like expired, or they die, or is that the term for it?
They must have. This was when everybody was super into making sourdough bread. So, you know, everybody and their mom had gone to the grocery store, and like I had gone 3 different places and couldn't find any yeast anywhere. And then finally found some, and I was like, oh, yes. Then I'm going to have some fry bread. And the worst part of it is, you know, not just the embarrassment of having my batch of fry bread not even get to the frying stage, but but then not having any fry bread to eat. And I was so had it in my head. Oh yeah, we're going to eat fry bread today.
Mm-hmm. All that work for nothing.
Yep. I think we ordered pizza instead, because by then I was like, I'm not making anything. This isn't working.
It was bread. It's some type of bread. Pizza.
You know, and you know, there was grease on it, so it was kind of similar.
Yeah.
But we are also, I from the weather update that I heard during our break that you guys are pretty cold up there.
Oh yeah. Did you guys get snow yet over there?
We got dusting. It was like the little pellets of snow, and it only stayed on like the lawn, so like not on concrete or anything. But we got a little bit of that. Did you guys get snow too?
We did get snow. It was not last night, but the night before. So I guess before Halloween. And yeah, it was probably, you know, about in the evening. It was probably like 9 o'clock or so. It started flurrying, and I was like, oh no, it's not going to stick to the ground. And it's just a light dusting. And then about an hour later, I look outside and it's like a half an inch of snow.
Oh my goodness.
Covered the ground. So
you guys got more than we did down here.
Yes. That's
I don't think it never really covered the ground, but I will say that it got me in that I almost said Snoop mood, but it got me in soup mode. And so we had corn soup last night, which was amazing. And you know, I feel like this is the right time of year for soups and roasted vegetables. So you know, we were keeping warm with that.
I love that. Gotta have that good the fall meals. We gotta take a quick break, but we'll be right back. And what do you want to talk about in this next segment here?
Hey, maybe we can talk a little bit more we should talk about Miss Buffy St. Marie.
Ooh, I'm down with that. Let's do it. All right. You guys are listening to Native Roots Radio Network, and this is I'm Awake, and we'll be right back after this break.
Unwanted sexting or photos, inappropriate jokes, even tickling or wrestling can feel like a violation. Catcalling, cornering, or groping, getting them drunk or high for sex, recording sexual acts without permission, hurting someone because of their sexual orientation, ripping a family member, a child, a date, a friend, a stranger, purchasing a human being for sex. You make the choice every single time. Sexual violence is many things. Make a choice. Do not do it.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Be a vaccinative. As the fall season continues, new COVID-19 variants threaten the health of not just you, but our elders as well. These new variants might even evade previous vaccines. That's why it's important to stay up to date. The newly authorized vaccines target current variants effectively and are FDA approved for ages 6 months and older. But there is an important note. These are the first COVID vaccines to be commercialized, which means there may be costs associated with them. Speak with your health insurer about your coverage before scheduling an appointment to avoid a surprise bill. For those without health insurance, help is available. Ask your health clinic about options or visit vaccines.gov for free locations. Getting vaccinated protects you from severe disease. Don't put yourself or elders at risk. So be a vaccinative and protect our community. You can visit vaccines.gov for free vaccine locations.
This message is brought to you in partnership with the Minnesota Department of Health.
Temperatures are cooling off and fall migration is underway. Do you know what that means? Eagle viewing season is almost here, and the National Eagle Center is your headquarters for information and experiences. This winter, experience bald and golden eagles in the wild with an unforgettable expert-led field trip. Plan your private eagle habitat tour and learn where the best eagle viewing is with weekly eagle counts. Plus, you can visit the eagles at the center all season long. Plan your visit or experience today online at nationaleaglecenter.org.
Anine, I'm Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, and you are listening to Native Roots Radio.
We are Alusa Nation.
Hey, welcome back. This is Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. This is producer Haley Cherry Shashap. Hey, Wangaway with you here. And with me, I'm with Arvina Martin, Executive Director of Emerge Wisconsin, and Arvina's guest hosting for host Robert Pilot. And we're back. So Arvina, let's talk some Buffy St. Marie, shall we?
Yeah. So for those who may have not heard, I believe it's called the Fifth Estate, a program on Canada's version of, I almost said Canada's version of PBS did a whole documentary about Buffy St. Marie's origins and how she doesn't appear to have any Native ancestry, and it has proven to be quite the issue in Indian country these days. People, kind of taking sides, either pro or against. I know that she was adopted in a traditional way by a Cree family. I believe their last name was Piapot. I don't know how to pronounce that. So if I said that wrong, I apologize there. But it really leads into this conversation or that we keep having about who is Native, who is allowed to call yourselves natives, and who, what that means. And there's a lot of people that fall on very different ends of the spectrum. Haley, have you seen this conversation happening online too?
Yeah, I've seen it not only just with Buffy, but, unfortunately, with other people too. And, it's hard. And, it's hard, especially because she was, adopted into those traditions. And, I don't know, the whole word like pretendian is comes to mind, but you know, in that circumstance with Buffy, it's really, really hard. I mean, she's done so much work and advocated so much for the Native communities. I mean, all her life. You know, I'm not too familiar with kind of her background and everything like that, but I probably, it's hard to say. So I really want to hear kind of more so your opinion on the whole situation.
Yeah, I know. You know, it's disappointing, to say the very least. I think that you know, she has presented herself in a way that is not consistent with the truth. You know, and if there was, you know, nuance to this, why wasn't that discussed, you know, so much earlier? I mean, I remember, I'm pretty sure I've seen, you know, records at my parents' house of hers, and she's won awards for her work, her recording career. I remember seeing her on Sesame Street nursing a baby. Wow. They were talking about, and they were talking about breastfeeding and feeding a baby, and she was nursing a baby, presumably her baby, I hope.
I would hope so.
Yeah. And thinking, oh, that was pretty cool. And, you know, I do think that moment was a big deal for folks. But at the same time, there is this great sense of betrayal that folks have, that they believed in and went to bat for her, and found out that that she hadn't been completely truthful, and was kind of trying to, you know, make excuses, etc. And that certainly doesn't help. But then we run into questions like, you know, well, if the family in that nation adopted her, you know, who are we to question, you know, that nation's sovereignty and who they want to call members of their community. And, you know, I think it brings up a lot of questions in terms of who gets to call themselves Native or Indigenous, and you know, what is what would be the proper place from someone who isn't, you know, born into a Native family but adopted into them. You know, my dad was adopted by two Ho-Chunk families in our traditional ways, but he never referred to himself as Ho-Chunk. You know, like, he sang and he was a member of the Medicine Lodge, but he, you know, people asked him, he told them he was Stockbridge Munsee. And, you know, if people asked him about his connections to Ho-Chunk, he would talk about his adopted families. And, you know, so he never ever considered himself a Ho-Chunk tribal member or anything like that. But, you know, does the idea, and this is more of like a legal construct, does the idea and does the fact that tribes are supposed to be sovereign, you know, does that give them the ability, you know, presumably to decide who is going to be a tribal member? And does that go beyond just who is born into it? I mean, back in the day, things like that would happen and people would be adopted in, but we're not in the same situation today. And I think that, you know, I feel like these days we can't throw a rock without hitting a pretendian. And I think that this one hurts a lot of members of our community, just because she has been so, you know, she has been so outspoken about issues that Native communities face. And would she have been considered differently if she presented herself as an ally who spoke on these issues? You know, would she still have the same kind of level of fame or influence? You know, those are kind of thoughts that come through my head. I don't know.
You make some really great points there, Arvina. And again, we're with Arvina Martin, who is guest hosting. She is the executive director for Emerge Wisconsin and an enrolled member of Ho Chunk Nation. And we're talking Buffy St. Marie. And if, a lot of people don't know who Buffy is, she's a musician and she's a older Native who has claimed to be Native American. We're talking about that and how she was adopted into Native family. I don't know.
And I think it's weird too. I mean, like, it certainly looks like she tanned her skin somehow.
She looks, of some type of Italian descent or Native, but.
Yeah. And I wonder if there's like some fake tanning situations going on that she's doing in order to kind of perpetuate. Yeah, exactly. And then that brings up all the ideas of, despite all the amazing work that she's done, she's still perpetuating an idea and a stereotype of what Native people should look like. And, I think, Haley, we know, and I'm sure most of our listeners know, that Native people can look like lots of different people. And there are natives that present Asian, or natives that present white, or natives that present black. And that doesn't, cancel out their indigeneity.
Exactly. Exactly. You're exactly right, Arvina. And, I personally myself will come out and say that I struggled a little bit with Native identity. I don't know. We talk about blood quantum. That's a term that comes up a lot within Native communities, and how much Native blood someone has apparently will contribute to their identity, I guess. But one thing that Robert has always told me, as long as you know personally who you are, who your family is, and you can name your family members of these enrolled First Nations, and you can prove your direct descent, that's all that matters. And no one can take that away from you. So
I see, and you're exactly right, Haley. And I see, especially with younger folks that have not grown up around their tribal communities, kind of struggling with their identity and their place within their tribe or within the Native community at large. And, I think that even that people that fake this kind of identity makes it so much harder for especially our brothers and sisters who are returning to their tribal communities after, not growing up, and, having that identity or, their ways taken from them before they were even born through no fault of their own. And, that it makes it so much harder for, younger folks that are trying to come back and trying to learn their ways. They get met with skeptical eyes, and I think that's a huge problem. And, that's why I think this issue of pretendianism, a word I just kind of made up right there, is so harmful. I mean, we can go in and talk about all other kinds of reasons why it's harmful, but I think that one is kind of a one we don't talk about as much.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, great points. And I'm glad that we did talk about it briefly a little bit, but we do have to take another break here. So we have another guest that will be joining us next, and her name is Heather Bailey. And Heather she works in Wisconsin, right?
Yes, I actually, when I was on city council, I worked with her. She is a preservation planner, so she works in historic preservation.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned. You are listening to Native Roots Radio Network presents I'm Awake, and we'll be right back after this short break. Back to school season is here. And while this is an exciting time for parents, kids, and educators, let's not forget how far we've come in our battle against COVID-19. We're in a better place, but COVID-19 is still here, and we need to continue to help protect our communities. With the flurry of new schedules and classrooms, let's not overlook the fundamentals of staying safe. Wash your hands regularly and watch for any symptoms like fever, chills, a cough, or shortness of breath. Should you or someone you know have COVID-19 symptoms, stay home and get tested. Find more tips on continuing to be safe at health.state.mn.us. Let's have this back-to-school season be a time of renewed commitment to our collective health and brighter future for our Native communities. Again, find more tips on continuing to be safe at health.state.mn.us.
This message is brought to you in partnership with the Minnesota Department of Health.
Ever wonder how far you could go with a master's degree, graduate certificate, or a doctoral degree? Metro State University is hosting a graduate program preview day on Tuesday, November 14th. Explore more than 25 graduate programs, meet faculty and students, and discover resources available to help you take the next step in your career. Sign up today at metrostate.edu/preview day. Know your power. Metro State University.
When a drunk driver hit my car, the structural integrity and safety features of my Toyota Sienna saved my life. I will always own one. That's it. That's the ad. I don't think I need to add anything else, but I'll gladly mention their sales team is attentive and friendly, their service department is the best in the state, and their vehicles, you can put a lot of faith in the quality and safety of a Toyota vehicle. The structural integrity and safety features of my Toyota Sienna saved my life. I will always own one. That says it all. Rudy Luther Toyota, 5 miles west of Minneapolis on 394.
Would you let animals pick your insurance? Do you really need to experience mayhem to get the best rates? Or how about a celebrity quarterback or fake university saving you money? There's a lot of marketing stunts when it comes to insurance, but what you really need is someone looking out for you. Call Array Insurance, and they will work hard to find you the best insurance coverage and rates. So avoid gimmicks and call Cheryl at Array, 763-504-3067, or arrayinsurance.com. Array Insurance, working hard for you.
Hi, this is Frank Brown, owner of Minuteman Press Uptown, Minnesota's only minority-owned union printing company. We have big news. We've moved to North Minneapolis.
Why did you move?
As a black business owner, I wanted to be part of the North Minneapolis community to provide jobs.
Are there other reasons you moved there?
We have bigger new equipment and outgrew the other location.
What kind of new equipment do you have?
We have new equipment that allows us to print quality signage and banners. We also have a new inkjet printer, printing larger sheets, improving production efficiencies.
Is the new location easy to find?
It's not only easy to find, it's more convenient with plenty of parking. We are now located on Washington Avenue North off I-94 and the Dowling exit.
So do you still print everything?
We print more than everything. We have over 175 Google reviews with a 5-star rating. Call 612-870-0777 or visit mpuptown.com. That's mpuptown.com. We print everything.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for partly cloudy skies tonight with a low around 26, Thursday sunny with a high near 41, and Friday cloudy with a high around 47. Nightingale in Minneapolis is your perfect neighborhood gathering spot. Treat your taste buds to their famous Nightingale burger and fries, roasted duck breast, or try their unique offerings like the roasted broccoli bruschetta and smoked chicken liver plate. Can't stay? No problem, as Nightingale offers convenient takeout orders. More at nightingalempls.com.
Hi, this is Representative Sharice Davids from Kansas. I'm Ho Chunk, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
We are Alusa Nation.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. This is producer Haley Cherry. I'm here with Arvina Martin, who is the executive director of Emerge Wisconsin, and she is stepping up guest hosting for Robert Pilot while he is out in Washington, D.C. And I'll hand it over to you, Arvina.
Yeah, thank you, Haley. I'm really excited to talk with our next guest here. She is somebody that I worked with when I was on city council in Madison, Wisconsin. And her name is Heather Bailey, and she's the preservation planner for the city of Madison, Wisconsin. Hi, Heather.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yeah. I'm really excited to have you here as a guest. And I was wondering if you could kind of start off and tell us a little bit about your work in preservation planning and how that kind of fits into historic preservation of Native sites and cultures.
Yeah. So, I'm the preservation planner for the city of Madison, Wisconsin. And so that is more than just old houses, although a lot of it is old houses, as should not be a sort of profound statement to anyone. History didn't just start when the white people showed up. Madison has a long and diverse history that goes back to time immemorial. And so it's also including the Native American history that's, within our jurisdiction, our city boundaries. So there are a lot of primarily archaeological sites within Madison. The number of sites that are all over the city, it was a site of long-term human habitation. The tribal history that's there, it's just everywhere. So the Landmarks Commission is involved with being the stewards on behalf of the city for preserving the cultural heritage of the Madison area. Now, having said that, I can speak pretty well to the historic buildings, but the archaeological sites, while that is underneath my purview to help be a steward of those sites, because that's my job. Literally, it's in writing. That's part of my job. But that's not necessarily my story to tell. So I need to be working with our tribal partners to make sure that we are making sure we are being good stewards of these sites and going about that in a way that is the way they want us to do that, as opposed to the way that we think is right. But also that the stories that we're telling them on the terms of the people whose heritage it is, not, well, I have studied this, or I'm a scholar, or I'm an expert, or whatever, and I've decided this is the story that we're going to tell. So there's a lot of working with people to make sure we're telling the best story that we can, and that we're being the best stewards that we can.
Yeah, and I, for the listening audience, while I was on city council, I was also a member of the Landmarks Commission, so I got to work with Heather quite a bit on stuff. And yes, it is a lot of old houses, but I frequently found the other stuff where when we would talk about some of the sites a little more interesting, I guess, because I think I related to that more than 1800s construction of a certain kind of building, Tudor revival, etc. I'm just trying to remember some of these architectural names that I lived amongst for a while. So you have to work with lots of different stakeholders, and what, especially when you're working with Native historic preservation. Can you tell us a little bit about those stakeholders? And there's so many moving parts to this, and it gets complicated.
It does get complicated. So, I mean, there's various levels of laws. So there's federal laws related to the Antiquities Act and the National Historic Preservation Act. And so there's compliance with federal stuff when there's some type of federal nexus. There's also state laws. And so there's, particularly for the sites that are known human burial sites, and that's a lot of them in Madison. Then there's state level compliance. But the way that the laws were written for state level compliance, they've recently had some additional level of notification and tribal involvement, but they're still not at the level that I think they should be at. But that's our minimum level of compliance. Most of we call it securing a request to disturb. So doing ground disturbing activities within the boundaries of an area that is a known human burial site. And mostly that process is notifying the state, and then the state has a threshold of when they involve the tribes. But for my experience, the vast majority of me just notifying the state, and they aren't necessarily involving the tribes because that's not required. I wanted us to be going at more than just the minimum level of compliance. I mean, that's the base of what the city has to do. But the city can and should be doing more. And so, Arvina, when you were on the Landmarks Commission, that was wonderful discussion to be able to have a discussion amongst the Landmarks Commission, which also just highlights the point of if you're going to be doing any kind of work, but going to be doing historic preservation work, it can't just be people who look like me. We need diversity in the bodies of people who are making these decisions and having these discussions. And prior to you serving on the Landmarks Commission, I don't think we had someone to genuinely represent Native voices for the significant number of resources. I mean, we were doing tribal consultation, but that's different from the body that is the city's, set of deciders for how they want to proceed. It changes it to have someone who is a tribal member, a part of the Landmarks Commission, to talk about how we are proceeding. Makes a big difference.
Yes.
And I was thinking about some of those project reviews that we did that involved ground disturbing activities, and you engaging in that discussion and making it personal. Me saying to I'm going to finish answering your question here in just a moment.
No, you're good.
I'm already off on a side thing.
I love tangents.
That's good, because that's where I live. Some of those discussions, me telling a property owner, these are human burial sites. These are where people's families are buried. A lot of yeah. You saying, this is where my families are buried, and the reasons why that this is has such strong emotions, and your people being forcibly removed from these locations where their families are buried, and why this is important. And there was one particular hearing where that really threw the property owner. He had that as very intellectual, way up here, as opposed to the genuine human connection of, hey, these are people's families who are buried here, and we need to talk about the ways in which we are impacting these sites. That made it very real. I'm sorry I had to come at your emotional cost, but that was super powerful, and that made such an impact for that person to be like, oh yeah, maybe where I want to have my garage isn't as important, and maybe I really should have it, way away from the mound site. Yes. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
But in terms of the way things work on the city level, we're constantly learning, know better, do better. So there's lots of back and forth, and as we gather more information and try to figure out what we're doing and how we're doing it. There's also, I lived in Tennessee for 20 years, and so I've picked up a couple of idioms from there. There's a lot of fixing to get ready to in government work, and so I've got a lot of slow wheels of government going on, and I've got a lot of fixing to get ready to things, and I need to get to the final completion phase. One of the things we had started, Arvina, when you were on the Landmarks Commission, was maybe we should have a land acknowledgement at part of the opening script for Landmarks Commission, not as a checkbox and now we're good with being compliant with giving a shout out to that this is Ho-Chunk land, and then done, we don't have to do any more, but as a starting point to ground our discussions, to be like, hey, this is where we're at. And we came up with some initial language. You and I then went to Wittrick, Wisconsin Intertribal Repatriation Committee, and to talk with all of the tribal partners. Primarily, I am working with the Ho-Chunk Nation Tribal Historic Preservation Office, Bill Quackenbush and his team, and they are amazing. I can't say enough good things. So primarily working with them, but rather than just going with the assumption of, well, we'll obviously always be working with the Ho-Chunk, is there anybody else we need to be talking with? The federal government, each of the federal agencies has a list of, here's the tribal partners you need to do consultation with. And I've done enough federal compliance stuff to know that different federal agencies have different lists. So rather than me going to the U.S. government to find out who we should talk with in terms of how we do compliance, who we do consultation with, I wanted to go to the tribes to say, who of you want to be involved in our consultation and process? Because that seemed way more straightforward and common sense. And so we talked with them. We started the discussion. They said they would like to, talk some more. And then we were getting ready to do a survey of known archaeological sites in the city of Madison, which that project just wrapped up. And I mean, you and I went to talk with Wittrick, is that 2 years ago?
I think so, yeah.
Slow wheels of government. So yeah, we just finished up that survey, got some really amazing information. I've already sent it on to Bill Quackenbush for his comments, but hopefully in the next couple of months, I will get things together enough where I can go back to Wittrick and say, hey, here's what we've got. Who would like to be involved with talking about, here's the sites that we are aware of. What sites do we need to be taking better care of and providing more protections on? And also, what kind of stories do we need to be telling here? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great
well,
point.
Yeah, it sounds like we're ready to go to a commercial here.
Yes, we definitely do. Yes, great. We are here with Heather Bailey, Preservation Planner of City of Madison, Wisconsin, and Arvina Martin, Executive Director of Emerge Wisconsin, enrolled member of Ho-Chunk Nation, and producer Haley Cherry. And you are listening to Native Roots Radio Network presents I'm Awake, and we'll be right back after this short break. Please stay with us.
We are Alusa Nation.
In this critical time for Indian country, voting is crucial to protecting the land, water, and communities. Voting creates collective power in securing our planet's future amid climate chaos. Engage in personal conversations with loved ones to ensure they are making informed voting choices. Register to vote. And don't forget that 16 and 17-year-olds can pre-register to vote in Minnesota. NACD is asking us to stand together and make voting a tradition. Go to NACD.org to learn more and make your pledge to vote.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States.
And 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected.
Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf.
Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy.
As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired.
Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Bonjour, hello. My name is Wabin. I am an enrolled member of the White Earth Nation, descendant of the Navajo Nation, and co-chair of the Indigenous Employee Resource Group with the Minnesota Department of Transportation. MnDOT is hiring for a variety of positions from road maintenance to accounting and more. We offer great benefits. For more information or to set up a one-on-one resume and application assistance, visit mn.gov/careers, or you can text or call 612-257-2388. 612-257-2388.
Hi, this is Philip Anthony, the host of the Downright Upright Show, the place to go to hear out loud and proud what Minnesotans are thinking. I interview many interesting people and listen to their thoughts on how they plan to better our community and to hear their opinions on current events. Join us and get in on the conversation. You can listen to my podcast, The Downright Upright Show with Philip Anthony, wherever you listen to podcasts or at am950radio.com. So come and join me and continue being fantabulous.
You're listening to Native Roots Radio. This is Spirit from Reservation Dogs. Get up and listen.
Hey, this is producer Haley Cherry, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio Network presents I'm Awake. This portion of the show is supported by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations. Ooh, we missed you, Arvina. I think I had you on mute, so that's my bad. But
I was doing it too.
I know, I saw you, big Peanagigi. Thanks for participating.
I'm not an expert wolf howler yet, but I'll get there.
That's okay. What clan are you?
I'm Warrior Clan, so I don't come by it naturally.
No, we're Eagle Clan, so neither are Robert or I.
Well, thank you, Haley. And again, we are here with Heather Bailey, the preservation planner for the city of Madison, and someone who I worked quite a bit with when I was on city council in Madison. And this is a little different. Well, not a little different, but Heather, I'm sure you've heard about the Oshkosh situation and how there was a site found. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about what happens when sites are found. Because in Madison, we have a lot of sites that are already mapped, and you did talk about us mapping like that's not the best word, I guess, but mapping sites, and could you talk a little bit about what happens when if there were something like that to happen in Madison, or what is the process that goes on when during construction a site is found?
So yes, there's mapping of known sites, but those are as documented by primarily white archaeologists. So those are what are known to that set of folks. So that's the information that we have. So if there are ground disturbing activities in these places that have already been documented, then the state's requirement is that we have an archaeologist on site for archaeological monitoring. So looking to see if while they're doing the ground disturbing activity, if there is, and the technical term is inadvertent discovery. So they find something, or sometimes someone. And then what do? Well, there's a full stop. There's a full stop, then it goes to, they have to determine if they find human.
Stop,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, by full stop, you mean all the construction work stops?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then the site gets locked down so that there's no looting and no further desecration of the site. The first level is they have to get a forensic anthropologist to take a look to see, are these historic remains, or is this something recent? Because that can happen too. So if it's something recent, then this is turned over to the police. It's a criminal thing. If it's something historic, then the Office of the State Archaeologist is involved, but then the tribes are involved for what is going to happen with these human remains. And every tribe has different priorities because they are different people. For what do you want to have happen? Some tribes want the human remains to remain where they are and have a capstone installed so that no further ground disturbing activity could impact those burial sites. Some people want them removed from a place that now has a lot of activity and therefore a lot of disturbance going on, and taken to a place for reinterment. And then that's fine. Then we work with the tribes to make sure that happens. But it's a case-by-case situation, and it depends on who all is involved with this particular consultation for the ground disturbing activity. Now, again, with Madison has it's the site of long-term human habitation. There's the places where we think there's a higher likelihood of an inadvertent discovery, but it could happen anywhere. So we like to tell properties, particularly for properties that are up along the lakes, people want to live there now. People wanted to live there as long as there have been people here. So there's a good chance you're going to find something. And so we tell people, if you make an inadvertent discovery, you need to do a full stop, contact us, contact the state so that this can happen. So that is the sort of level of what can happen in those situations.
Have you ever encountered in your career any inadvertent discoveries that then had to be handled?
Yes, I haven't done any since I've been in Madison. Before this, I worked with the city of Durango in Colorado, and we did have a project there because it's a site of long-term human habitation, both the ancestral Pueblos and the Ute people. Long-term habitation in that area. So there was a housing development in an area that was outside. We had similar mapping outside of the boundary of where we knew that there were sites, and they disturbed a couple of burials. So we ended up doing a collaboration with the tribes, and the state was involved, and they ended up doing a reburial ceremony, and it slightly changed the shape of the development out there, but we worked with everybody to get to a solution.
Yeah. And do you think that, and this is your opinion as Heather Bailey, the person who works in this, and not as Heather Bailey, City of Madison employee, but do you think that in Wisconsin that there are sufficient rules? I'm like, or do you think that there's room for improvement?
Okay, well, I will say to a certain extent, I'm speaking as a lifelong bureaucrat. I think there's always room for improvement and strengthening our processes and go back and reevaluate. I would say, as me practicing, I wish there was more of a regulatory structure that required. So, I mean, we're doing this as the city of Madison we want to go the extra mile. But that's us going the extra mile.
Yes.
There's, again, the base level requirement for all other municipalities, but they need to go access the mapping information, the GIS information for where burials are, but they have to pay for that. Or they can go down to a terminal in downtown Madison at the Wisconsin Historical Society to look at something. So it's counting on these governments to do that work. And if you turn somebody up, like what happened recently, then, there's steps you need to take. But I think we have an obligation to be more proactive. And right now there isn't a requirement for doing proactive planning that is a way that is really involving tribal partners. I've heard Bill Quackenbush, have some comments about the ways in which the city do processes that involve sensitive sites. The way in which our systems, and this is straight up systemic racism, the way our planning processes work, if we're doing some type of project, we notify property owners within 200 feet of the property. But because we forcibly remove the Ho-Chunk people, they don't have, they aren't legal property owners for these sites. So our planning processes in the city, it's not structured that way. So something like the Land Rights Commission has to create an additional process to try to help make that happen. And that means there's been a lot of damage to cultural heritage for the Ho-Chunk people in the Madison area.
Well, I want to say thank you for all of the work that you have done and for being a progressive, forward-looking, also backward-looking and seeing where the mistakes have been made and really working on righting those wrongs. I was always very happy to work with you because I felt that we worked together fairly collaboratively. And I think that that's a really great system to kind of get through those little blind spots that we may have. So thank you so much for your work, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was absolutely wonderful.
Yay,
thank
wonderful.
you. Big Pinagigi to you too, Arvina Martin of Executive Director of Emerge Wisconsin for stepping up and guest hosting for Robert Pilot tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Heather Bailey, Preservation Planner, City of Madison, Wisconsin. You've been listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake. The American dream is a dream for a reason. You have to be asleep to believe it. Wake up with us. We are still here. We are the next generation. We need to resist, divest, join a group, run for office, and free Leonard Peltier now.
Run for office.